What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the most comprehensive NFL player review series on the internet, my studs and duds. Today we're going to be going back through Week 9, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. As most of you know, while these ratings adjustments to these players is reflected by the film and real life, it is also resembled in my weekly custom Madden roster updates. And man alive, is it a big one this week. Probably the biggest update I've ever done. Considering we're about halfway through the season, I decided to not just look at the game-by-game approach, but also a more macro approach. So if you see guys falling that maybe didn't necessarily have bad games per se just last week, just consider their breath of life on the entire season just not resembling where I had them rated. So it's a great week to have a big ol' update for the first time. We got new features for Madden franchise, so it's a great time to grab the roster if you are here for the Madden stuff. I do want to remind you guys, this is a massive time commitment. My roster updates are a free service to you guys, so if you want to support this series, support my roster, support my work, don't just hit that like button down below, but please consider a donation to me. You can do that 3 different ways. Number 1, my Venmo or my PayPal. Those links are right here and in the description below. But also you can sign up on Patreon, where you can not just support my channel, but get exclusive content as well. Exclusive access to the mailbag for the Fully Inflated Football podcast, access to my weekly picks for the NFL. Come draft season, you'll get exclusive film breakdowns, team-specific 7-round mock drafts. So plenty of great ways to get exclusive content while supporting the channel and my roster in the process. So that is all we have to get out of the way. Let's hop on into a really exciting episode ahead, starting with our star of the week. Not really a big surprise, Dalvin Cook, especially after we didn't raise him last week. He is just going off up here in Minnesota. And it really makes you think, when you talk about running backs versus quarterbacks, we don't spend so much time talking about, all the surrounding core. It's so much about what are they doing from the quarterback's perspective. But when we talk about running backs, so often do we say, yeah, running backs don't matter. It's all about the blocking they get in front of him. And then you watch Dalvin Cook, and it's like, yeah, he gets good blocking. Minnesota's got a good blocking unit. But man, he does so much himself. His vision is spectacular. He knows when to hit it up the hole. He knows when to kick it outside. He breaks so many arm tackles. He'll fight through tackles. And then, of course, the breakaway speed, contributing in the receiving game as well. Dalvin Cook making a case for being the best running back in the NFL right now. I think as a pure runner, between the tackles, quote unquote, although it's much more than that, he is the best runner of the football, though other backs might be more complete as far as what they do as receivers. But yeah, Dalvin Cook, our star of the week. And then our dud of the week is going to be strong safety Jamal Adams. Now, I want to make one thing very clear. I think he will turn things around here and eventually get back to where he was. I think very highly of Jamal Adams, but the reality is he is not playing particularly well right now. Sure, he has the highlight plays, making tackles for loss, and the blitzing ability that he has as a pass rusher, but he is a coverage-first position, and when you aren't performing in coverage and you're rated as high as he is, he does need to come down, and he needs to play better. He's seeing a very different scheme here in Seattle. With the Jets, he did so many different things. One play he was an edge player, then he was a linebacker, then he was a slot corner, then he was a free safety. Whereas in Seattle here, he's very much playing specifically that Cam Chancellor strong safety role, which is something he's familiar with. But in this scheme itself, it's just not quite working for him right now. So he's got a lot to figure out. Teams are, I'm not going to say attacking him in coverage, but they're really not staying away from him. He is not this, a black hole on the defense that you need to stay away from at that safety position. So Jamal Adams can and probably will be better, but for now, he is struggling. Now let's get into the games, and we are going to start with the Denver-Atlanta game. So just a couple pieces moving here for the Denver Broncos. They looked pretty much as I expected. Melvin Gordon gonna drop down. Like I said, guys, we're looking not just week by week here, but on the breadth of the entire season. So you might see some changes here that you say, well, he didn't really suck last week per se, but think about the whole season for some of these guys. Melvin Gordon, example, just hasn't really been all that good. He's been fine, he's been serviceable, but time to come down. Michael Ojemudia, on the other hand, he is really struggling. Granted, his worst plays came against Julio Jones in this game, but he looked completely lost, literally getting his ankles broken. And it wasn't just this week. He's been really struggling. After a good start to his Broncos career, it's been a rough really stretch of games for Michael Ojemudia. Then for the Atlanta Falcons, Hayden Hurst going to go up. We talked about him playing better, being a bigger factor in the receiving game here. Matt Ryan looking his way quite a bit, so he's going up. Chris Lindstrom, this is a first-round pick that really looks like it's paying dividends. Just was not healthy last year. He was a top 12 to 13 pick in last year's class. A ton of potential at that guard spot. Falcons fans got to be extremely excited to see that pick paying off right now. And then these receivers, I mean, the Falcons are deep. It's not just Julio. It's not just Ridley. Christian Blake stepping up in limited opportunities. Ola Mide, which is actually Olemide Zacchaeus, I learned on the broadcast today. What a name that is, but he's not just a name. He is an explosive receiver, showing that he's not just a deep threat, too. He's becoming not a focal point of the offense, but they're definitely not afraid to look his way. And then Alex Mack is going to continue to drop down here, just showing that age, possibly the last year of his career with how he's playing right now. He's like 35 years old. And then A.J. Terrell, first-round pick at corner, actually playing pretty well on this defense that has a lot of work to do, but it's good to see that first-round pick stepping up, looking comfortable as a rookie. So on to our second game here, Lions at Vikings. Matthew Stafford, the roller coaster ride that is Matthew Stafford continues. 2 weeks ago, he was phenomenal. Last week, he struggled. This week, he really struggled. I know that he did not have a lot of practice this week, but it is a familiar opponent, and he really was not good in this game. Ultimately, they pulled him out. He gets banged up. Hopefully, he's not injured or anything. But yeah, I'm just selling a little Matthew Stafford stock right now. I've always talked him up, but there just seems to be something missing as far as the attention to details, the mental aspect of playing quarterback, the play-to-play consistency. We know the physical traits are there, but I'm not willing to say he's this team is free of Matthew Stafford blame here, if that makes sense, for why this team consistently struggles. It's obviously not all his fault, but yeah. Then we have Taylor Decker. He's going to go up. He's just been so steady all year, really showing why he earned that massive contract extension here. So good for Taylor Decker. This offensive line in general is very underrated. TJ Hawkinson, top 10 pick last year, continues to just be steady and show those physical traits, blocking well, coming down with touchdowns, just good all-around tight end on the rise here. Then these running backs are going to come down. DeAndre Swift just does not really pass the eye test necessarily to me. He shows some flashes of explosiveness, but the blocking has not really been bad here. He hasn't been able to take this job by storm. He hasn't been making guys miss like I expected he would out of Georgia. He hasn't shown the vision. He's had some fumbling problems. It hasn't been a great start at a running back position that if you're taken in the first 2 rounds, you should be hitting the ground running. So DeAndre Swift coming down, Adrian Peterson coming down. He's been struggling lately at his age. And then these corners, Jeffrey Okudah, he's really been struggling. Now, that is a rookie position that is very difficult to play. So I think there's brighter days ahead for Jeffrey Okudah, but in this man-heavy scheme, he has struggled to show why he was the top 4 pick that he was. I'm not going to be, I'm not selling Jeffrey Okudah here. He's just not really showing a whole lot here. And then Amani Oruwariye also really struggling in the last few weeks. Another corner that I like, just yet another example of Matt Patricia not being able to get the most out of the talent that exists on this roster. Then on to the Vikings side here, we talked about Dalvin, but it's not just him. The Hog Mollies up front are doing a great job. Brian O'Neill, Garrett Bradbury, these are 2 integral pieces of the future of the Minnesota Vikings. Brian O'Neill is just consistently developed, being that former tight end coming out of Pittsburgh, played a couple years of tackle at Pittsburgh, but just putting on weight, showing the athleticism, perfect scheme fit here in this outside zone heavy scheme, but developing as a pass protector as well, improving that anchor, just all around everything you want to see in a guy that was drafted as a bit of a project player, doing everything he can to improve every aspect of his game. A really impressive player, and I think a future and current star at the tackle position. And then Garrett Bradbury, he still has some weaknesses that he needs to weed out, and it might be something that sticks with him throughout his career because he hasn't shown a ton of growth in the pass protection side of his game. But you can see why they drafted him. They are so heavy run here in Minnesota. They want to get these guys on the move, hit that outside zone scheme, and there's few centers in the league better equipped to block outside zone than Garrett Bradbury. Flies off the ball, so athletic. He is a young Jason Kelce at that center spot. Not the pass protector that Kelce is, needs to develop in that aspect, but again, that run blocking, it is reflected here in how well this team runs the ball. Justin Jefferson, what a pick this was. This is self-explanatory. He's just been so steady week after week after week. It was a good week to move him up. And then Riley Reif is getting extremely comfortable in this scheme as well. Not a superstar by any of the stretch of the imagination, but having one of his best seasons as a run blocker, as this run game is really clicking here. But he's been a good pass protector as well, so he's coming up. And then on the defensive side of the ball, these low-level interior veterans, I suppose, are playing well here. Armon Watts, a younger guy out of Arkansas, really stepping up, playing his best football of his young career. Shamar Stephen, playing possibly the best football of his old career. He's like 30 years old, but Zimmer, he loves this guy. He's brought him in and out of the team, and he's really leaning on Stephen because with I always want to say Floyd opting out, Pierce opting out there at that defensive tackle spot. They really needed someone to step up on the interior, and Stephen has been the guy that they can lean on there. And then Anthony Harris, again, hasn't necessarily had terrible weeks, wasn't necessarily terrible this week, but just a guy that really flashed last season. Playing on that franchise tag is not doing the best job to prove that he deserves a massive long-term contract to be considered as a top safety in the league. Really good player, but just not living up to his expectations that he set for himself after the last couple of seasons. Next up, we have the Ravens-Colts game. So on the Ravens side of the ball, they struggled offensively, but not a ton of movement. Nick Boyle actually impressed. Really impressive catch in traffic, getting down the field, continues to just dominate as a run blocker. An interesting tight end. Not a great athlete, but he's massive, and they use him really well. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jimmy Smith going up. The veteran just will not die here. They bring him back on a cheap deal, and wow, they are lucky to have him there because Marlon Humphrey unable to go in this game. Jimmy Smith has been stepping up on the outside here. He's played some safety, some outside corner, some slot corner, just such a versatile veteran, smart, physical, tough player. What a great fit for this Baltimore Ravens defense. But we are going to have some guys falling on the front. Calais Campbell, just, some age regression here. He's still been a very good player, but just also not just the age, but a guy that has played his best football in a 4-3 scheme as a defensive end, more of an edge player who will kick inside on passing downs. That's not what he does here. He's a true defensive tackle in this scheme. A guy that, honestly, I think plays a lot of his best football lined up as that 5-tech outside of the tackle, and he's not doing that a ton, especially on pass rushing downs. So you're seeing him get, I don't want to say doubled, but having to deal with some of that more trench work on the inside that he doesn't always see as an edge player in a 4-3 scheme on early downs. So he's struggling more as a run defender, and frankly, he's just not showing that same explosiveness as a pass rusher. So still a very good player, just coming down from some of that elite status that he had in Jacksonville. He just hasn't been that good here for the Ravens. And then Derek Wolfe, a veteran signing here that he's, again, just been kind of average all year, hasn't really popped. He's going to come down, not grading out well as a run defender, so he's going to come down too as well. Now for the Indianapolis Colts. I hinted at this on Twitter. The most movement I've ever had, so buckle up. Here we go. DeMichael Harris taking Andrew Luck's number. Some people were like, really? You're going to give this random 5'8" receiver Andrew Luck's number, the first player to get that number since Luck retired? Well, it turns out this guy can actually play. Yeah, he might be 5'8", but a really nice, smooth athlete. And not just that, This includes Week 10 against the Titans, and he had a beautiful contested catch on a back shoulder throw from Phillip Rivers. This guy can play, and he's got a great mentor there in T.Y. Hilton to kind of teach him how to play as that undersized receiver. So don't sleep on DeMichael Harris. There just might be something there for the undrafted rookie in a very, very talented receiver class. Then Nyheim Hines has just been so smooth, and not just what he's doing in the receiving game, he's very clearly their best running back. As you can see Jonathan Taylor going down, they need someone that'll just pick a lane and hit it, and he does that. He's showing shiftiness in the run game. A guy that's been virtually just a receiving threat throughout his career has actually been this team's best running back. They really miss Marlon Mack, but not quite as much now that they're realizing that Nyheim Hines can actually be their feature back, even though he doesn't physically profile as such. Inversely, Jonathan Taylor, he looks hesitant. He looks like a slow starter. He has no idea where to run. The fumbles have shown up. He's not doing a great job in the receiving game. Yeah, he might have a highlight play here or there. He's just such a freak athlete. But, man, this is reminiscent of not just Leonard Fournette, but even worse than that, Trent Richardson. Just really bad vision and not a guy you want to lean on at the goal line. They're trying to do it, but you can see he gets stuffed on third down. It turns into fourth down, and they give it to, what's the other guy, the kid out of Ole Miss. They just don't trust Jonathan Taylor, and I don't blame them. He has shown very little. He's been one of the biggest surprise disappointments of the season, if not the biggest. Michael Pittman is going to go up here, his best week against the Titans, showing why it was very easy to compare him to Juju Smith-Schuster. You know, the crossing routes, the physicality over the middle of the field, the catch and run ability, all showing up this week in a great Colts offense. So he's going to go up. And then T.Y. Hilton is going to come down. He just continues to be not what he used to be, simply put. I don't think we're going to get much argument on that one. And then on the offensive line, Mark Glowinski, returning more to that 2018 form. He looks fantastic. Braden Smith next to him, paving lanes in the run game, and then bunkering down as a pass protector as well. So he's going to go up. We lowered him earlier this year, so he's responding very well. And then onto the defensive side of the ball. So many different guys stepping up here for Matt Eberflus. This defense is really emerging as maybe not an elite defense, as I've said, but man, they are extremely steady and well coached, and they keep everything in front of them. They tackle well. So Grover Stewart setting the tone up front. The development he's shown as that traditional block-eating nose tackle to be a good run defender. It's been really nice. Dave Gettleman's definitely going to have his eyes on this guy as that, one-dimensional run-defending defensive tackle. And then Xavier Rhodes is going to go up. He's been awesome here. Kind of a, maybe a spark plug, a little, kick in the ass a little bit. Gets, let go of Minnesota and realizes that he's not the top corner he used to be. He looks like he's in shape. He's been faster. He's been less grabby. So Xavier Rhodes going to go up one, returning to some of his old form. And then Rock Ya-Sin inversely is going to come down. This is a player that I did not really like in the draft because of that lack of athleticism. You can see it when he gets targeted deep. He just doesn't really trust himself. He can get a little grabby. He can trip his feet up under him. He's a tough physical corner, but in the NFL, you really got to be able to run at that corner position. So it's a player that this is one pick for the Colts that I didn't really love it, and he is really struggling. So he's going to come down. And then on the edge, we got three guys moving here. Al-Qadim Mohammed, just an underrated role player here, defends the run so well, and he's developing as a pass rusher too. He just plays so hard. He comes in fresh as part of a nice rotation here, just deserves a little more respect. And then Justin Houston, he's going to come down. He's been virtually a non-factor over the last 6-7 weeks. Just got to come down here again. He's quite possibly looking like the end, the Cameron Wake end of his career type of deal here. We're just kind of having that fall off. It looks a lot like that. And then Tyquan Lewis, luckily, as Houston is disappearing here, Tyquan Lewis, a second-round pick 2 seasons ago, stepping up as a full-on contributor. He's doing a little bit of everything. He's a bigger-bodied edge player. He's got a really nice first step. He's got some power, defending the run well. He's got some upside. They're hoping to get Ben Bonago not Ben Bonago. Who's the other guy? Kamoko Toure. I get those two guys confused, but they're hoping to get Kamoko Toure back soon. So a young group of edge players kind of on the rise, as Justin Houston has been a nice placeholder for them. And then in the secondary, both these safeties are going to go up. Kari Willis is just so stable as a traditional box safety. Super secure tackler, really plays fast, even if he lacks physical coverage, athleticism. But some of that coverage is starting to show up. This guy just doesn't miss a lot of tackles. Just a super nice, steady fit for this defense. And then Julian Blackmon, man, this guy's starting to make a rookie for the year case. We knew he's got coverage ability, and that's shown, or at least I did. And if you listen to my draft analysis, you knew that he'd be a perfect scheme fit in a cover 3 free safety spot, just as he is here. But what he's even surprised me on as a huge Julian Blackmon truther is the tackling ability, the downfield approach that he's got here has been really impressive. You see him come up into the box and like a heat-seeking missile take down Derrick Henry with ease in the backfield. That is not easy to do. So Julian Blackmon +2, 73 to a 75, a rising star, filling in valiantly and potentially even been an upgrade to Malik Hooker, which again is saying a lot. So then we've got the Panthers-Chiefs game. Curtis Samuel is going to go up for the second week in a row. He's making a kind of a finish line home stretch push to get a big contract. He is due for free agency. The trade deadline has passed, so it's going to be here in Carolina where he makes that claim for a nice contract, and whether that's here with the Panthers or someone else brings him in, this is a guy that has had a bit of a up and down career who has trended up lately, showing some ability as a deep threat, but we know that he can also be that kind of hybrid, flexible playmaker, whether he's lined up in the slot, literally lined up at running back, throwing him bubble screens, flat screens, everything, you name it. Curtis Samuel showing off that playmaking ability. And then everything else here is on the defensive side of the ball. The Panthers offense kind of was as expected this week, but Brian Burns continues his climb. Really respect his ability to refine his game and not just be a speed threat off the edge. He is developing that tool belt as a pass rusher and becoming a much more physical run defender than he ever was at Florida State, playing with discipline and using those long arms to get off blocks and that speed to contain the edge. So Brian Burns becoming a full-around defensive end edge player. I just ranked him in my top 10 for edge players. Now, I'm an idiot and left Von Miller off, but Brian Burns trying to be a Von Miller-esque player with that elite bend and athleticism off the edge. Technically now with that, my 11th edge player on my top listing for the position. But regardless, Brian Burns has just been awesome. F.A. Obata, they have such a great scheme fit for him as literally just a rotational kind of 3-tech, 4-tech kind of guy. He's going to come in, push from the inside. He flies off the ball. He's a handful of an athlete to handle, and he's shown some development, an interesting career coming over from, I think it's the UK. Hasn't played a ton of football in his career. And then Corn Elder, going to climb up, playing decently in the slot there. Stephen Weatherly. It's a good thing Burns and Obata and Ettore Gross-Matos are here because Stephen Weatherly has been a complete flop of a signing. He's nowhere to be found. That was kind of expected. I'm not a huge Stephen Weatherly guy, but he's really not shown up. And then Trey Boston, just again, he's had a solid season, but just hasn't been what he was over the last 2 years. Just trying to bring him down. Just been a little quiet. He's given up some big plays here for the Panthers, so he's going to come down. Derek Brown going to come down. Just hasn't been a consistent player. The splash plays are definitely there. There's 3, 4, 5 plays this season where you see it and you go, oh my God, this guy is a superstar. But it just doesn't show up on a play-to-play basis. His pressure numbers are way down. He actually is grading out pretty poorly as a run defender. So he's either, kind of battleshipping it where it's either it's either sink or swim, basically. Hit or miss with his run defending approach right now. He needs to play more consistently, hold his gap a little better, play with more discipline, just be more of a sound all-around player. And then Zach Kerr is the example of how to do that. I mean, this guy is just insanely strong. He holds his lane, keeps his eye in the backfield. Your typical Dave Gettleman Award winner, Zach Kerr, if you will, as that run defending early down defensive tackle. And then for the Chiefs, We've got Tyreek Hill coming back up. We lowered him a couple weeks ago, kind of called him out a little bit, just kind of where you at. You haven't really hit on these big plays, and the last 2 weeks he's been just phenomenal. So he's coming back up. I just named him the most valuable non-quarterback in the league, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So that being reflected a little bit here. Mike Remmers has been outstanding. I mean, you honestly might not have even noticed that Mitchell Schwartz is out with Mike Remmers in there. They're both the same age. They're both really good technicians as pass protectors, and they really haven't missed a beat with Remmers in there. So Remmers has kind of shown this throughout his career that when he's at tackle, he's actually pretty serviceable, especially against more, technical pass rushers. He doesn't have a great anchor, and that's why he really struggled at guard when certain teams have pushed him in there. But he's been a really nice find for the Chiefs, and they're hoping to get Schwartz back, of course, but Remmers been a really nice plug in there. And then the two running backs are going to come down. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got off to that great start, but has just been really quiet since. He's not making guys miss over the last month of the season at the same rate. They go out and get Le'Veon Bell. For whatever reason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire just hasn't really captured that superstar status here that it looked like he was destined for. And it shows. He's got those flashes in there, but a little bit missing there with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then Le'Veon Bell comes in. This isn't necessarily a reflection of how Le'Veon's played. He's been pretty good when they go to him, probably better than Edwards-Helaire, but it was probably just a matter of time a long time ago to lower Le'Veon Bell, and he has certainly not been the old Le'Veon, now with two different schemes, and now in a Kansas City team where he should, in theory, really thrive. And then just the last note here is Willie Gay still not getting full-time starting reps. I think it was only like 17 snaps this week. I'm a very big Willie Gay fan. It's good to see that when he gets out there, the speed shows up, the playmaking shows up. Put him on the field. Let him start, Kansas City. What are we waiting for? Between him and Isaiah Simmons, I just don't get what's going on right now with these linebackers. Next on our list, we have the Bears-Titans game. So it's going to be Charles Leno going down here, just continuing to kind of regress throughout the years. He has not been all that over the last 2 years. You can tell that Bears offensive line not where they want it. Before we go over to the defensive side of the ball, I will say a couple notes here. Riley Ridley getting a plus in the notepads this week, not going to go up because I do like him. I just wish he had better opportunities here, both from a playing time perspective. He's got 3 receivers ahead of him that are also really good players, but also the quarterback situation. But I talked about this on Twitter over the last 2 starts for Riley Ridley, or at least the last 2 games of his career. He's only played in 6 games, by the way. But PFF grades of 77 in week 17 of last season, and then a PFF grade of 70 this week. But it's not just that. The stats are showing up. He's 5 for 6 for like 76 yards. I had a first-round grade on Riley Ridley, and, he falls to the 4th round. He doesn't do much as a rookie, and you might think I'm prepared to say that I was wrong, but, he really is a fluid receiver. He's a great route runner, and I wish he had a better situation. I knew it when he got drafted. I was like, God, I couldn't think of a worse spot because he's got 3 good receivers ahead of him, and it's possibly the worst offense in the league here for the Bears right now. So, I want to see more of Riley Ridley here, Chicago. And then just a note, Rashad Coward kicked over from guard to tackle, actually played pretty well against a decent group of pass rushers here against Tennessee, so something to keep an eye on there. But then for the defensive side, Roquan Smith. He is finally looking like that blue chip prospect that I had him as in that class. He's flying all over the field. He's been so good in coverage. Did a great job to help contain Derrick Henry this week. Jonnu Smith in this game. So Roquan going off. To me, paving his way up into that group of elite linebackers. That's the way he's played over the last month of the season, talking about Kendricks, Levante David, Bobby Wagner. Roquan's always had that potential. He's been hit or miss, but everything is starting to click here in the middle of year 2. Just more examples of, or another example rather, of linebackers needing some time to get up to speed in this league. But man, Roquan's been fun to watch lately. Someone that hasn't been so fun to watch, Robert Quinn. He had a great start here in Chicago. The first few games, he really popped, and then he has just fallen off the face of the earth. Just, like 1 pressure each the last 2 weeks, just nowhere to be found. So Robert Quinn coming down. he's had a bit of a roller coaster career, to say the least. And then Tashawn Gibson, the veteran signing here, the lack of athleticism at his age is clearly showing in coverage. And then for the front seven, we got Brent Urban going up. He's had a nice season here, a bit of a revenge game here against Tennessee. Been a really good run defender for the Bears. And then Barkevious Mingo has been kind of under the radar, playing a good role player role on the edge there, doing a little bit of everything. Former first-round pick for the Cleveland Browns has bounced around the league, having a decent season here for the Chicago Bears. Then for Tennessee, again, this is going to include the Thursday night game against the Colts. Ryan Tannehill got to come down. Over the last month, he's kind of regressing back to the mean for his career a little bit. Just hasn't been as sharp. He's been missing some more throws. Third downs look pretty ugly for Ryan Tannehill. He's kind of got that thing where he's really good first and second down, scheme him up throws, but on third down, do you really trust the guy? He's basically just going to kind of make a read and go with that. He doesn't have a ton of play extension about him, not a ton of pocket movement. The physical talent is there, but it's similar with guys I've criticized of guys like Derek Carr, Cam Newton at times, Marcus Mariota, Dak Prescott, guys that have those traits to extend plays more often, but just don't have that comfortability in doing so. So Tannehill's going to come down. Ben Jones going to come down. He's getting up there in age. He's struggling in pass protection a little bit more this year. Nate Davis going to come down on that offensive line. So not all Ryan Tannehill's fault. The offensive line has dealt with injuries. These guys are regressing. So Nate Davis is really struggling as a pass protector, and he's never been a good pass protector, but it's really showing right now. And then Dante Foreman, this was such a smart pickup for the Titans because they've needed a backup to Derrick Henry just to kind of spell him for some carries because they lean so heavily on Derrick Henry. But the rookie they drafted, I can't think of his name right now, to App State, he has not been a factor for them. So they're looking at the free agency like, who can we bring in to replace Derrick Henry? And they're like, oh, I remember that 235-pound back out of Texas that's a straight line, basically A.J. Dillon, Derrick Henry type, where he's got breakaway speed. He's tough to bring down in space, but he takes a little bit of time to get going. Yeah, that's Donta Foreman. They bring him in here, and he's been just such a great scheme fit. So great find by the Titans. He's been out of the league, basically got run out of town in Houston. So someone that Vrabel is familiar with. I think they would have shared time together there in Houston. But anyway, Donta Foreman, someone to keep an eye on. And then Ty Sombrello at left tackle. He's been playing well as they've needed him to step up with Lawan out at left tackle. He's been a really good run blocker, not so much in the protection game, but definitely worthy of going up. And then on the defensive side of the ball, some under-the-radar guys here. Derek Robertson is stepping up. Had a great game here against the Bears, kind of playing that Kameli Correa role as your hybrid outside linebacker, doing a little bit of everything. And then Breon Borders coming out of nowhere, stepping up the last 2 weeks, going off at the cornerback position. They've been banged up there, and they've been looking for answers. And Breon Borders, with the way he's playing right now, I mean, he's played like a starter the last couple weeks. He's just plugged right in off the street, basically, and has looked super comfortable out there. He's giving up catches, but he's not giving up big plays, and he's been right there all along for the Titans as opponents have really gone at him because they would think he'd be a weakness, but he's just been solid. And then Desmond King's coming down, not necessarily because of how he's played here in Tennessee, though he hasn't been like a great coverage player. This is more of a reflection of, he gets traded for a 6th-round pick. His stock has been falling. He wasn't all that great for the Chargers, but also just this is not a great scheme fit here for Tennessee. And he's going to have to learn some different things as far as playing a lot more man coverage, a lot more match zone. I like Desmond King a lot, but he is going to come down just because of a combination of a lot of different factors. That by no means is me saying this was a bad trade or is that he's going to be bad here in Tennessee. It's just he really had a nice little spot there for the Chargers for a while, and I don't think we're going to see the same Desmond King for the remainder of this season, at least in this Tennessee defense. Then we got Texans, Jaguars, the next game here. So for the Texans, Zach Fulton going to come down. He's been a problem in pass protection for Houston. Will Fuller is going to come up. It kind of reminds us this week with that big play, the threat he can have is one of the best deep threats in the league. Kenny Stills inversely kind of returning back to what he was before 2019. I've never been a huge Kenny Stills fan, but I had to do some apologizing last year because he was just a playmaker for this team, but just hasn't really shown up. When they do go his way, he doesn't really pop. So kind of reverting back to that, just kind of decent number 3 option here for the Texans. And then on the defense, Tyrell Adams continues to be basically what they lost in Benardrick McKinney, is just a really good tackler, a run defender. So he's showing up for the 3rd week in a row. And then Vernon Hargreaves is going to come down again. I mean, there's not too much lower to go here for Vernon Hargreaves, but man, he is just getting assaulted out there. I can't believe they keep rolling him out there with the way he's playing right now. It's not like they have a lot invested in the guy. I would look elsewhere. You got some guys you've drafted. You got the Penn State kid there. Maybe give him a chance. I don't know. Anything other than Vernon Hargreaves right now would probably be the way I would go. And then for the Jags, Jake Luton. I'll take a quick little, I'll start my victory lap on Jake Luton. It was just 1 week here, but he looked awesome out there. He looks every bit as advertised according to my draft profile on him. I said, this is the guy that I'm probably taking that 6th round flyer on. He passed the eye test at Oregon State, the processing, the comfortability in the pocket. He even showed some flashes of playmaking with his feet, but that really showed this week. The best thing about Jake Luton is he is actually a really accurate thrower of the football, and that's always going to help you have that confidence as a quarterback. The arm talent looked pretty good, probably even better than I evaluated at Oregon State. So he's got some really nice traits. Now, it's a tough ask for a traditional pocket passing quarterback to really thrive in the NFL today, but he's got a great surrounding unit here. He's got a good offensive line. He's got plenty of receivers to spread the ball around to. He's got a nice running back to check it down to who can create. So I'm excited to see Jake Luton continue to play here. It's unfortunate for Gardner Minshew that he had that injury, but another 6th round rookie here getting an opportunity to maybe make a case for being sort of a bridge starter or a low-end starter, a guy that could maybe go elsewhere. Or maybe even be the future here, I don't know. But I think you know where I'm going with that. Just a good, solid, under-the-radar quarterback. And then Chris Conley's just been so steady here. He's weeded out some of those drop issues that have plagued him over the years. So just been able to be more consistent and reliable for that reason. And then the offensive line, we're going to see some positive movement here. Andrew Norwell, A.J. Cann, these guys next to Linder there at center, who's just incredible. The interior of this offensive line is one of the best in the league from a pass protection standpoint. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Doug Costin going to go up here, +2, 66 to a 68. He's an undrafted interior defensive lineman out of Miami of Ohio. This is the 3rd week in a row he's gone up. Just been basically coming in here with nothing to lose and just balling out and run defense, getting in people's way and causing some trouble as a run defender, which is something they've needed. And he's, I think, pushing Devon Hamilton because Devon Hamilton's been playing a lot better. Their 4th round pick out of Ohio State. Then you got Miles Jack. He's going to climb up again here, +1, 84 to an 85. He is truly stepping up. They made him, I believe, the highest paid linebacker in football, and he looks just like it. There's a lot of guys this year that have gotten big contracts and then paid it back to their teams, which you always like to see, especially for a team like this that's really struggled on defense, that's needed leadership, and Miles Jack has shown that. Both having his best year in run defense, but also being all over the field in coverage. So then we've got some of these younger guys that they're really hoping would have shown more here. Kayvon Chason came out early on and looked like he might be a player for them. He kind of picked off Phillip Rivers. It got called back in week 1, and then week 2 he had a sack. It was looking pretty good, but ever since then he has been nowhere to be found. He's getting just bullied in the run game. He's not showing up as a pass rusher. This is a player that has a brighter future ahead. He was incredibly raw coming out of LSU, and you knew he would have some learning curves as a rookie, but it's been pretty rough to watch recently, so you hope he can show that development here in the future, but for now he's got to come down. And then Taven Bryan, a guy that just hasn't been able to capture any momentum here. He's a full-on defensive tackle now, which, he was more of that J.J. Watt hybrid defensive end role coming out of Florida. He's struggled in run defense. He hasn't been a consistent pressure getter. So could that just be a mistake to use him like that? Should they kick Taven Bryan outside a little more to relieve Caleb Von Chesson of some of that run defense issue? I think it's something to consider here for Jacksonville. Because you do have Doug Costin playing well. You do have Devon Hamilton. Maybe a scheme adjustment that Jacksonville should consider there with the way these guys are looking on early downs especially. And then on to the Giants-Washington football team game. For the Giants, Austin Mack is a guy that had some traits that I kind of liked coming out of Ohio State. I'm not going to say I loved him or anything, but definitely someone I thought was worth a 6th, 7th round flyer. He's a tough physical player. He run blocks. He tracks the ball well. A good kind of outside perimeter player at the receiver position. Obviously in a super talented receiver class, the Giants pick him up undrafted. He finds his way on the field because of injuries here and connecting on some deep balls here. So something to keep an eye on there for Austin Mack coming out of Ohio State. What's his upside there? He's not a great athlete, so I don't think it's particularly high, but he could be a decent 4th and kind of that deep threat rotational piece that's a good run blocker. And then Nick Gates, I want to make one thing abundantly clear here. I don't think Nick Gates is a good player, and I don't think the Giants can really justify him starting at center all season long, but he is getting that experience. While he's been one of the worst centers in the league, he's been about replacement level, so he's going to come not a replacement level starter, but like kind of that replacement level backup, which is about that 63 mark at the center spot. So he's going to come up. They need to replace him. He's not a long-term answer, but he's at least shown that he can be a quality backup, I think. Then you got Wayne Gallman for the 2nd week in a row going up. Just been really solid, good vision, running really hard. Making the most of his opportunities. Obviously never going to be a full-time starter anywhere else. I don't think this is probably the best football he's ever going to play, would be my guess. Just he's not all that explosive, but, maybe he proves me wrong. And then Matt Peart, again, what the hell is going on here? He's played 24 snaps in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Just start the guy. New York, he's been awesome when he's been out there. Just play him. What are you doing screwing around with Cam Fleming, who actually had a decent game here, but who cares? Matt Peart is a better football player, and he's got a ton of potential. I want to be proved right about Matt Peart, a guy that I was all over. I had a 1st-round grade on him. Super athletic, lengthy dude. I think you have a potential really nice tackle duo there with Matt Peart and Andrew Thomas, who's playing better lately. Let's get this ball rolling here. And then he looked good against Chase Young in this game. I don't know how much more you need to see from him to just start him. Then Kevin Zeitler is going to come down. He just hasn't been the ass kicker in pass protection that he's been. He's still a good player, but just a tick down there for Zeitler. And then Blake Martinez, I'm not going to apologize because throwing his Green Bay tape, and this is not the Blake Martinez you saw. It's also reflected in his PFF grades. But man, he's just like a new man out there. He's playing so much more confident and aggressive, and he's flying to the football more. He's getting more depth in his drops. There's a report that he changed his diet. Some of that stuff is hard to buy in the offseason, but he does look a little bit faster. He accelerates a little more, and he's making more plays. He's got interceptions, pass breakups. He forced a fumble, just stuff that he wasn't doing in Green Bay. When he's truly in space and he has to drop back more than 10 yards, you can still see that he moves a little bit like a penguin, and he's never going to be an elite cover player, but man, he has been so much better than I possibly imagined. You get a $10 million a year contract. I thought he would be a complete liability. I thought David Mayo would be a better linebacker. That has not been the case. So, I was wrong. It's been a good signing for the Giants. Not a great signing. I still wouldn't have done it. But at least Joe Judge and this team, they're making it work with Blake Martinez and making the most of him and turning him into a pretty solid football player. Another Green Bay edge linebacker here. Blake not... You get the point. Another Green Bay linebacker, though Kyler Fackrell is an edge player, has really been struggling, especially as a pass rusher. Just kind of a Band-Aid there. He's not the long-term answer. Showed a couple flashes early, but he's going to come down. And then for the Washington football team, they're figuring some things out here, slowly but surely. So the left side of the offensive line is coming together a little bit with some veterans. One more interesting than the other to me, Cornelius Lucas has been buried behind a pretty steady tackle duo in Chicago for a long time. This is a 6'7", fairly athletic tackle with some upside. A good eye by Washington to bring him in here, kind of make him the answer at left tackle. And I believe he was hurt early on, or they were just trying younger guys earlier, but regardless, Cornelius has played his first 2 games of this season as a football team player. God, that's stupid to say. But the last 2 weeks, he's been really, really nice at left tackle. So he's an interesting kind of late career potential breakout. As for Wes Schweitzer, he's playing decent football at left guard. He's had some really rough years in Atlanta, so I don't think he's all of a sudden turning this thing around, though he's been pretty solid. And then for these low-level receivers, Isaiah Wright, I did evaluate him coming out. I actually compared him to Cordero Patterson. He's a great kick returner coming out. Some off-the-field questions. He's a good athlete. He's shown some nice things with the ball in his hand, and certainly shown that size, toughness, run-after-catch ability. And then Cam Sims, 6'5", former Alabama receiver that was obviously buried behind a lot of talent there. Not a great athlete, but good ball skills. Showed a little bit after the catch this week, so he's going up here +2. And Terry McLaurin, time for another boost for him. Big explosive play, made some guys miss, and took just a comebacker or a curl route about 60 yards to the house. More bad defense than good playmaking by Terry McLaurin, but he still executed. And obviously, it's not just that play. Terry McLaurin is awesome, and the fact that he's doing it here, independent of who these terrible quarterbacks are, whether it's Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, Alex Smith, it doesn't matter with Terry McLaurin. He's just awesome. I can't wait to eventually, hopefully, see him with a competent, consistent starter here. And then Cole Holcomb, he's getting back into the starting role here. I don't know if he was injured early on or if they just benched someone else, but he was really great last year and was really up and coming. And I was surprised to see them bring in all of these different linebackers. Well, Cole Holcomb has overcome that adversity and won this outside linebacker job. He is outstanding. He's a pretty good athlete, but he's really smart. He's a secure tackler. They have something there in Cole Holcomb. I would love to see him healthy with Reuben Foster coming back. And then, someone else winning out that outside linebacker job opposite of Cole Holcomb, and you'd really have a nice linebacker trio, but especially a duo there with Holcomb and Reuben Foster for the future. And then you have DeShazor Elliott, +2, 65 to 67. This guy's been mostly a special teamer for Washington, but having a late career emergence as a kind of do-it-all safety, he's been fine. Washington fans, is Troy Apke injured or did he get benched here? Let me know that. I was curious because we haven't seen Apke the last couple weeks. Everett kind of playing that free safety role. Apke's one of my guys. I'm just looking out for him. I'm curious what's going on there. All right, on to Seattle at Buffalo. Tons of movement here for Seattle. Basically, the entire offense moving here. Russell Wilson, we did boost him against San Francisco, but 2 of the last 3 weeks, there's been some ugliness in there. Could just be the weight of this team, the burden of Russell having to carry this team being too much for him, but you don't like to see these mistakes now showing up over 2 weeks. There's some of the attention to detail stuff, whether it's picking up blitzes, whether it's the occasional really dumb throw that you don't see from guys like Rodgers or Mahomes. So some red flags with Russ, just going to come down a little bit. Still QB2, but taking back the 1 overall he got last week after a really good game against San Francisco. Then DJ Dallas has been fine, stepping up. He's going to go +2, 65 to a 67. And then the offensive line, tons of movement here. So Brandon Shell has been awesome. This has been such an under-the-radar pickup for this team. You see so many people on Twitter when you get into the MVP conversation saying Russell Wilson has a terrible offensive line. It's just not true. They actually have a well above average offensive line. Other than Jordan Simmons, they've been really nice at every position. So Shell has been one of the top pass protecting right tackles this year. He's had decent years before for the Jets. This was just a really good pickup in general. So +2 for him. Dwayne Brown has been one of the top tackles in football this year, so he's going up. Damian Lewis still struggling in pass protection, so I'll give you that. But man, this guy is already one of the best run blockers in the league. He has to a T fit my draft profile on him, and that you can plug him in day one. He was one of my top guards in the class. I thought this was a great pick for Seattle. Plug him in day one, and he's going to maul dudes up front. He flies off the ball. His get-off as a run blocker just stood out at LSU, but that footwork, the technique as a pass protector is still growing. Now, he was good this week against a lesser interior defensive line, but it is growing for Damian Lewis as he continues to just maul dudes in the process. And then Jordan Simmons, he sucks, but just like we said about the Giants center, he's playing at a replacement level, backup level, so it's time to move him up. I don't know why Seattle hasn't tried someone else. He's not a very good football player, but he is going to come up. And then Jacob Hollister at the tight end spot, he's going to come up. Will Dissly coming up +1 here. Both these tight ends have drastically outplayed Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen, more just a blocker. I will say he's blocking better than he ever has. Maybe not ever, but over the last few years. But the lack of athleticism, I mean, it even shows compared to Will Dissly, which that's saying a lot. And then David Moore is going to come up. He continues to make plays as this team's number 3 receiver. He is just a really nice vertical threat, really nice hands, a trusted target of Russell Wilson. And then on the defensive side of the ball, just a note on Carlos Dunlap, by the way. This was his first week as a Seahawk, and he was outstanding. He looked rejuvenated. I've been saying it, the Seahawks defense is going to play better. They're without their best corner in Griffin. Dunlap, his first week here. They have the linebackers. They have some other defensive linemen. Jamal Adams, this was his first game back. He's going to be better. So things are going to come together on this defense. They're probably not going to be elite, but what you saw from Carlos Dunlap, certainly encouraging because they've needed that big presence as a pass rushing edge player. But yeah, Quinton Dunbar is going to come down. He's just really struggled. He was outstanding for Washington last year, but just hasn't been that player for Seattle. Different scheme fit, a lot of offseason distractions. So some red flags with Quinton Dunbar. Probably not going to get a contract extension here for Seattle with the way he's playing. And then we talked about Jamal Adams. So let's talk about the Bills here. Josh Allen had to go up after this game. Thought about making this a +2 because he was just that good. Excited to see him play the Cardinals. A great opportunity to really get hot here and keep climbing. But two massive things with Josh Allen that I think it's fair to say we're looking over the first 2 years that he just might not ever get to a high level to be considered an elite quarterback. And that was number one, just the mental side of things. Not just processing defenses, making smart decisions, which has been so much better, but the game is slowing down. He's just so comfortable as a passer. He's not making those bad decisions, but he's throwing with touch and anticipation. He's not just always going to that, top arm talent piss missile throw that he always does. So he's just been so much more well-rounded and thoughtful as a quarterback, which has been so fun to see that development. But just in general, the accuracy also. Maybe it is just as simple as, slowing down, thinking a little more, and throwing with more touch. But he has been really accurate this year. He is utilizing every bit of that amazing arm of his. And then, to me, he's always had this elite pocket presence. That was the number one thing I liked about Josh Allen coming out as someone that was a Josh Allen truther, and that's revealing itself. God, if this is the Josh Allen we get this week against Seattle, which is a really bad defense, but this Josh Allen that played today is like best quarterback ever type of stuff, like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes in their primes types of quarterbacking. It's just seeing that week after week after week now before we can really say, is Josh Allen with those guys? Because the guy that we saw this week is that quarterback. So really exciting stuff going on with Josh Allen if you're a Bills fan. And then lots of other movement here. Gabriel Davis continues to just step up when he gets his number called. He's the fourth wide receiver here. But a great scheme fit coming out of UCF as that true vertical threat. I can't think of a much better place to land him as just a guy that can kind of run deep, and he'll stem some other stuff off. He's done some good intermediate stuff as well, but he's stepping up at a touchdown this week. Then Zach Moss is going to continue to go up. He just looks the part, simply put. He's big, tough, fast, patient, aggressive as a runner, so I like what I'm seeing from Zach Moss. They have a nice duo there with him and Singletary. And then the offensive line, these guys are really settling in. This team's just done such a good job to surround Josh Allen with all the help he needs to show the growth that he's shown. So Darrell Williams, Deion Dawkins, the tackles, continuing to play great. And then Ike Butker out of Iowa. I mean, if you need to pick someone off the street, pick someone up off the street or sign a 7th-round draft pick or anything like that, just grab someone from Iowa or Michigan or Notre Dame, because these guys just always feel like they work out. Ike Butker's been around the league. He's from Iowa. Now he's playing some of his best football in like year 3, year 4. Tyler Kroft, +2, 70 to a 72. Just been very stable this season. He's not a great tight end, but they actually gave him a decent contract a couple years ago. He's been blocking pretty well. He's a starting caliber tight end. He's fine. And then on the defense, not so pretty. Tre'Davious White, he did have the pick this week, but just on the course of the season, like I said, we're looking at the whole breadth of the season a little more this week, and Tre'Davious White just hasn't been that top corner really at all this season. He's just been fine. Teron Johnson also struggling this year. He's going to come down. And then Quentin Jefferson started off fast for the Bills, but he's been more of a liability out there lately, not been a good run defender at all. The Bills are the worst run defense in the league, and undersized Quentin Jefferson in there has not helped, but he's not getting after the passer lately either. So there's your Bills. Now on to the Las Vegas Raiders. Devontae Booker, remember him? For Denver, just could never really take the bull by the horns and had fumbling issues and just ended up getting ran out of town there. Well, the Raiders pick him up, and he has been a new man. Gosh, he is fun to watch. He is really explosive. He's really fast. He always had that, but he's just been so steady. Great late career refocusing here for Devontae Booker. I always appreciate a veteran that can say, you know what, I'm not done. I may have not had the career I wanted, but I can be so much better. And just, kind of hitting the lab, hitting the gym, getting back in shape, and getting an opportunity like this. Good for Devontae Booker. And then Nelson Aguilar, again, very similar. Gruden's been really good at finding guys like this who can get a rejuvenation with a better opportunity or a different opportunity. Nelson Aguilar looks like a new man as well, playing almost a different position. He's been a slot receiver for the most part for Philly, but the Raiders have stuck him outside more. They'll use him in the slot, sure, but yeah, they've stuck him outside. They're throwing him go balls. They're saying go make a play downfield, and he's totally delivering. He's been a better deep threat than Henry Ruggs over the course of the season, so he's been awesome. Hunter Renfrow as well, just continuing to grow and be steady here. His hands are just so secure. He's learning how to stem some routes to get a little more vertical too. He's not just a stick mover. He's not just catching 6-yard hooks and slants. Like, he's running crossers and sluggos, and he's becoming more of a big play threat for the Raiders. And then Alex Ingold as well, fullback. He gets involved in the receiving game. He's possibly the best fullback in the NFL right now, not named Kyle Juszczyk. And then on the defense, Clelin Ferrell, he is really developing. He's quite clearly to me a top 5 run defending edge player. And that was almost never in doubt. Like, he's a big-bodied dude. He was always, to me, going to be a good run defender. But he's been a quality pass rusher to the point where, like, he's a good number 2. They still need a number 1 guy, and I think they could have had that at number 4. I think Brian Burns would have been a better pick. But, you get past that at a certain point. And Clelin Ferrell is a very good football team. Could have done more with that pick, but it doesn't mean Clelin Ferrell is not a good football player. So he's setting a tone up front, very much so, and showing some development as a pass rusher. And then Carl Nassib, this isn't looking like the best signing. He just hasn't been all that good for this team. He's not defending the run well. He kind of splits time with Crosby, very similar player, but just not even playing as well as Max Crosby. And then Corey Littleton, another free agent signing that just is not working out here. They signed him after a complete flash-in-the-pan season for the Rams, kind of an outlier season for Corey Littleton last year, but he did look so good in coverage, so fluid as a converted safety, who just looked like he was ready to be a top cover linebacker in the NFL. But, man, scheme fit change here, and he looks just lost. We knew he wasn't going to be a good run defender, but even compared to Nick Kwiatkowski here in coverage, he has just been abused. And, they're putting a lot of responsibility on him. They're paying him a lot to be a good cover linebacker and putting him in compromising situations, but it has not been pretty at all. And then Isaiah Johnson, on the other hand, he did look really comfortable. He's a 6'2" corner with a lot of potential, and I like that pick. It was a 4th-round pick a couple years ago. But yeah, he came out here and he was comfortable out there covering Mike Williams, Donald Parham on the outside, like big-bodied receivers. He got out there in some good matchups and was getting his head around, breaking up passes at the catch point, like just looked solid. +2, 67 to 69 at a corner position that the Raiders really need guys to step up. So I'm sure Raiders fans were pretty stoked about that performance from him. And then for the Chargers, Justin Herbert +1 just continues to really show that authority over the football. This guy can just throw the ball wherever he wants so effortlessly. I still think the attention to detail stuff, the play-to-play stuff, it's still growing as far as just making the right, correct decisions all the time and moving the sticks on a consistent basis. But obviously the big plays are just incredible with Justin Herbert. So he's going to continue to go up. And then Cole Toner +10, 54 to a 64. He is out of Harvard, and he has actually had 2 elite games of pass protection in back-to-back weeks. So I don't know if he's going to sustain that, coming literally out of nowhere to do that, but you got to recognize real. I mean, he's been really nice holding down that right guard spot. Brian Bulaga is going to come down. Just this signing was a good signing in theory, but Green Bay is looking like geniuses for letting him go and getting Rick Wagner, who's actually been better when he's been on the field. But Bulaga, he's never been able to stay healthy throughout his career. He comes to one of the worst medical staffs in the league, and he's barely been able to play this year. And when he's been out there, he just hasn't been that good. So stock is down for Brian Bulaga. And then for the receiver, Tyron Johnson, only 3 snaps this week, but he gets that deep target and he just goes up in double coverage and comes down with it. Hell of a play by Tyron Johnson. Honestly, if you ask me, I'm not trying to sound like a Herbert basher here, but Herbert threw that thing up into double coverage, and if Jonathan Abram wasn't one of the worst cover safeties in the league, it should have been picked off. Tyron Johnson comes back to the ball and goes up into double coverage, and it turns into a 60-yard completion for Justin Herbert. I'm just being real here. So Tyron Johnson, I think he's got some potential as a deep threat. He did this at Oklahoma State with Mason Rudolph. And then Kalen Ballage. Chargers fans, I know they're rough on Anthony Lynn, and I would be too as a head coach, but say what you want, the guy knows how to coach running backs. He gets so much out of these guys. I mean, clearly Melvin Gordon played better football under him. Austin Eckler, the growth he's shown. Josh Kelly's been better than I expected. Justin Jackson has grown here. Now Kalen Ballage. I mean, it seems everyone that he touches turns to a good running back here. So Kalen Ballage +4, 65 to a 69. My pro count for him coming out was David Johnson. So much potential coming out of Arizona State. Wearing number 31 here for the Chargers, he looked like that. So I don't know if he's going to be able to grab more opportunities here or what. But man, he looked explosive, powerful, and is going to go up. And then for the defense here, Justin Jones continues to be a good run defender up front. Jerry Tillery, Nasir Adderley, some notes here from the 2019 draft class. Jerry Tillery had a great game rushing the passer here, but struggling in run defense, making more of that transition to the defensive end position here. Just an interesting case study, someone to keep an eye on here, but more good than bad here. Could be due for a boost if he continues to rush the passer well. And then Nasir Adderley had by far his best game as a Charger this week. A guy that had a lot of expectations coming out of Delaware, and a position they need to stabilize there. So want to see more from him. He's been so bad at that safety spot, but a lot of potential there, someone to keep our eye on. And then lastly here, Casey Hayward going to drop down 87 to an 85. Just again, over the course of the season, just has not been a top corner and needs to come down. Then for the Dolphins Cardinals game, this was a blast to watch. So Tua is going to come up. I'm going to be honest. I'm not trying to be overly critical of these rookie quarterbacks. I think between Tua, Herbert, and obviously Burrow, we're seeing a lot from these guys. But, over the first 2 games, Tua hasn't done a ton as a passer. He definitely looked comfortable in this game and was more impressive than not. But outside of the one drive where he really blacked out, honestly, to steal a term from the Ringer NFL show that could not have phrased it perfectly. I mean, he went unconscious for a drive in the best way possible. I mean, he just showed some athleticism that I didn't think we saw at Alabama, in my opinion. So that was impressive to see. So most of the boosts here as far as his Madden rating go are you're looking at acceleration, juke, spin, the mobility stuff here for Tua. Looking like a top-end athlete at the quarterback position. I want to see more in the passing game. It's not all on him, though. He doesn't have great receivers. He doesn't have the best pass protection here. I'm not trying to bash on Tua. I haven't seen too much from a passing perspective that's like wowed me with Tua. He's looked comfortable. He's looked solid. He's looked like that kind of game-managing passer that I projected him to be. So as far as the upside goes, it's very much to be determined. It hasn't been like Herbert or Burrow where I'm like wowed by his passing ability, but the athleticism definitely shows for Tua, so that's exciting. And then the offensive line had a good week this week. So Austin Jackson gets back in there healthy, which you want to see, and he looked really good. I like Austin Jackson. He's got a good story. I'm pulling for him to continue to show this development. He was always more of a raw prospect, but a good week there. Eric Flowers looks like a good signing at left guard. He's been a very stable pass protector, as has Ted Karras. So center to left guard, they're looking good. And then on the right side of the line, you got Kinley Young at right guard. He's had his struggles in pass protection. And then Robert Hunt at right tackle. Maybe had his best game this week, especially in a while. He's struggled over the last month, but looked good this week. Not much to speak of against the Cardinals pass rush. So we'll see. If he plays like that, though, he'll definitely go up. And then for the defense, Andrew Van Ginkel continues to make plays here. He's just been so steady. A guy that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dolphins fans, I think he was injured all of last season, was drafted out of Wisconsin here to play that outside linebacker hybrid role for this Belichick Flores defense, if you will. So he's been very comfortable in that role. He's frankly outplayed Kyle Van Noy in that same spot opposite of him. And then Byron Jones just hasn't really worked out here. Different scheme fit, a lot more man coverage than they ran in Dallas. Just not super comfortable at this point for the new corner for the Dolphins. And then Jerome Baker is going to come down as well. He's had his struggles in coverage as a tackler. Just all around has not really popped for the Dolphins. Then on the Cardinals side of the ball, yes, they lost, but it was a really exciting week for the Cardinals because Kyler Murray was fantastic. I mean, well documented how much I love Kyler. Everyone's watched a lot of Kyler Murray because he's so exciting. I mean, there's not much really to say. It's just your eyes can tell you what you need to see with Kyler Murray. He's just special. If the mental aspects of his game continue to grow, he could be the best quarterback in the NFL. He just has those types of traits as a passer and physical traits. And what's really promising here is his ability as a runner is really growing. He gave up on a lot of runs last year, whether it was scrambles or designed runs. And this year, he has so much more confidence to make guys miss, go to the house. He's just been so crafty to pair with the athleticism that he has as a runner. But then some of these receiving threats stepping up. Christian Kirk meeting his potential as kind of a big play, just player. Again, a guy that I think when Larry Fitzgerald decides that it's time to hang it up, will be a dominant slot receiver. It can be used like a Deebo Samuel, but with Larry there, it's just they've had a difficult time getting him going. He's got some traits to step outside and be a vertical threat, which we're seeing here. But just to see him making plays and getting comfortable with Kyler Murray, it's exciting. And I think the brightest days are ahead with Christian Kirk. Again, as soon as Larry Fitzgerald, who I love, decides it's time, this team will be better without me. Let's let Christian Kirk takes over the slot here. Andy Isabella can go outside, and this offense can grow as the unit that they're going to be 3 years from now. I'm not salty. I just think that that's the way it should be. The tight end stepping up here, Max Williams, another interesting piece for this Cardinals team. High upside tight end. They get him from Baltimore. He's been banged up throughout his career. He was banged up this year, but he steps right in and has a great game this week. He could be going up if he can just stay healthy. Darryl Daniels continues to be kind of a spot player for them at tight end. And then not just Kyler Murray stepping up, not just the receivers stepping up, but this offensive line has been outstanding and possibly better than anyone could have projected here. So DJ Humphries has reached his potential at left tackle after getting a contract extension. This is a former first-round pick playing great, so that might have not have been expected because he's just been fine throughout his career. But then you look at the right tackle, Kelvin Beachum, who this was a late season or a late offseason pickup right before the year started. They grab him. He's playing his best football at right tackle. And then that makes your right guard better because Justin Murray, who they extended but wasn't a great right tackle, kicks into right guard, and it turns out he's better at right guard than he was at right tackle. So all these guys are playing their best football, and then you have Justin Pugh at left guard, who's supposed to be their best guy. He's been just kind of average. And then your center, Mason Cole, is kind of benefiting from all this, and he's been solid. So the offensive line is great. So you got Kyler, you got the receivers, you got the offensive line. Running backs don't matter. Cliff Kingsbury and his play calling. This is getting really exciting here for the Cardinals. And then for the defense, they're still figuring some things out. Jalen Thompson got the start at free safety here and looked great. That's promising. I like Jalen Thompson. He's got a lot of burst and range, and a supplemental draft pick last year that played really well down the stretch. So he's got some upside. He's an interesting player at that free safety spot, surrounded by a ton of talent with Buda and Isaiah Simmons and these corners. And then just some notes here. They do pick up Marcus Golden in a trade with the Giants, a former Cardinal coming back home. They needed to make that move with Chandler Jones out. This team's hoping to make a playoff push here, but they needed someone that could rush the passer. He came out there, I think, had 3 pressures and a sack this game, so good to get that, starting caliber edge player out there that they've needed. And then Isaiah Simmons finally gets about half the snaps at linebacker, and he was awesome. I mean, we love Isaiah Simmons. He's rated very nicely. It's good to see him playing like that. So if he can continue to earn more and more reps and play like this, he's going to be a future star for the Cardinals here. All right, home stretch here, starting with the Steelers-Cowboys game. Matt Filer just hasn't been the same at left guard as he was after a breakout season at right tackle. I don't fully understand it. I would play the rookie Dotson at guard with DeCastro there, put Filer back at right tackle where he was so good. To me, that's your best unit. I've said that before, but Filer's been good, just not great at left guard. And then they really found something here on the defensive side of the ball with Alex Highsmith. This is going to be an absolute seamless transition. Bud Dupree playing on that franchise tag. They couldn't have drawn this up any better. This is just what the Steelers do so freaking well. They plan for the future and the present. And that's exactly what they've done with Alex Highsmith. He's a little more of a TJ Watt type, just a very flexible athlete that can do a little bit of everything, but really good with bend and get off and can drop into coverage as that 3-4 outside linebacker, compared to Bud Dupree, who's more of a full steam ahead power rusher. But anyway, it's going to be a seamless transition. He looks outstanding in limited reps week after week after week. He's making the most of those opportunities and certainly making the Steelers feel really good about the future between TJ Watt, who I don't even need to talk about. I mean, he just continues to have a Defensive Player of the Year season. Maybe even to the point where he's competing with Aaron Donald. The Rams were on bye last week, so it's easy to have that recency bias. Aaron Donald is still just out of this world good, but if anyone's going to win it instead of Aaron Donald, in my mind, it'd be TJ Watt. And then Carlos Davis was an interesting pick out of Nebraska. He gets kind of his first playing time here. Really good athlete, but I want to say a redshirt senior coming out that just never reached his potential with his twin brother, kind of the same. But if he was going to work out in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers were probably the team that was going to get that out of him. So good game of run defense in kind of his first real showing. Then the Cowboys. So Garrett Gilbert's going to come up 9 all the way up to a 57. Yeah, I know, crazy. He was fine. Looked like a backup. I would go back to Andy Dalton. And then you have halfback Tony Pollard. Honestly, just so much more explosive than Zeke right now. He should be getting more workload than Zeke the way they're playing. I'm just going to say it like that and leave it like that. Tony Pollard's been awesome. And then in the secondary, Donovan Wilson is stepping up. The last couple weeks, he's looked really solid. A second-year player out of Texas A&M, I think, like a 6th-round pick. So there might be something there. +3, 65 to a 68. Trayvon Diggs, +1 for the second week in a row. He's been really comfortable making plays on the ball. I liked Trayvon Diggs. I thought he was a late first, early second-round pick. Thought this was a total steal for the Cowboys. But Jordan Lewis really struggling at that corner spot. Just getting had at the corner position. A guy that had an upward-looking trajectory that is really struggling this year. I think the Cowboys are really disappointed in how poor he's been in coverage this year. Then we have the Sunday Night Football blowout. Despite not having a ton of takeaway from a game like that, there's actually a lot of players that decided to move this week, and also taking a look at their season outlook. Again, not so much just at this game. But Adam Troutman, phenomenal in this game. I'm so mad at myself for lowering him for my number 1 tight end spot. I think I ended up with him 3rd, but originally had him number 1, and then the combine scores just weren't that good, so I lowered him down. But God, he was the best blocking tight end in this class, the best hands, the best run after the catch, and possibly the second best route runner. And the Saints end up with him, and he looks like a future, at least really nice starting caliber, physical tight end. Might not have the elite athletic traits to be a high-end mismatch problem, but at the very worst, this dude in a really bad tight end class looks like a really solid piece. Josh Hill just kind of continues to exist here. They've got 3 tight ends that they really like, but he had a couple plays in the receiving game this week, but has had his best year as a run blocker as well, so he's going up. And then Cesar Ruiz, it's been mostly good here for the Saints offense, but not so much for Cesar Ruiz. He seems like he's having some learning curves at that guard spot. He has been a liability in pass protection, so they got to do a better job to help him out. He was a true junior, kind of a surprise declaree out of Michigan, and he looks like he's having some hard times switching over to the NFL, switching from center to guard. So Cesar Ruiz, -2, 71 to a 69. A rare non-contributor from a rookie for the Saints. And then Trey Hendrickson, +1, 74 to a 75. Huge game this week. He was all over the field. I'm interested to see kind of what his potential is, either here or with somewhere else. Physically, what is his upside as a pass rusher? I mean, he went off this week. It was like 7 pressures, 2 sacks, was everywhere. So he's going to go up. And then Malcolm Brown, +1, 73 to a 74. Just had a solid, steady season as a run defender. He's made a couple plays as a pass rusher, so contributing for the Saints. Okay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady is going to come down. He was not good against the Giants the week before. Didn't pass the eye test this week. 3 turnovers, just the accuracy downfield dropping off a little bit. I'm just not buying it at the moment for Tom Brady. I'm sure he'll turn this thing around and have a really good season down the stretch. But I thought this was a big week to come out with his receivers against the Saints and prove that he's ready to go, and it was really the opposite. He was not sharp. The rest of this offense was not sharp. So he is going to come down. That's 2 weeks in a row where I've just been watching Tom Brady like, it just doesn't really do it for me. I'm not going to count him out, but man, not the best 2 weeks for Tom Brady, and I think that should be reflected here. Tristan Wirfs, +1, 77 to a 78. Such a good find. He's been the best of the 4 great offensive tackles in this class. I think they'll all work out, but Wirfs has hit the ground running and looks amazing out there. And then for the defense, just a note on Mike Edwards. He has made a play like every week, but he only gets like 7 or 8 snaps. So does he eventually get a starting job here? This was a mid-round draft pick out of Kentucky in, I want to say 2018. But, he looks better than some of these other safeties next to Antoine Winfield. So I'm curious kind of how that plays out, because he just keeps making plays when he gets these limited opportunities. I don't know how long that can go before you just start the guy. But then Shaq Barrett did show up for this defense. He's going to go up. William Golston did a good job getting after the quarterback. So both those guys are going to go up. And then Anthony Nelson, just more in the course of the season, has been really stable on the edge for this team, defending the run really well, just kind of playing that rotational edge role for the Bucs. And then our final game here, Patriots at Jets. So Jacoby Myers, no surprise there. He's been going off the last 2 weeks. He's been the focal point of this passing game and really passing the test. Not just playing in the slot, stepping outside, getting involved in the intermediate game. He just looks outstanding. Physical, tough, scrappy receiver. Not the best athlete, but he's got a great connection with Cam Newton going right now. And then Isaiah Wynn, Michael Onwenu. I find this fascinating with the Patriots. I mean, both these guys are 6'2" for Wynn and 6'3" for Onwenu. Onwenu fits the prototype of just your typical plodding 350-pound interior offensive lineman. That's what he was at Michigan. Well, he's been just lights out at offensive tackle for the last month for the Patriots. And how does that happen? Usually these guys are going to get exposed by speed around the edge, and eventually I think that would happen, especially with Michael Onwenu. Isaiah Wynn's just kind of a freak. He's just really short. Wynn's just a good player. But in Onwenu's case, I mean, the Patriots, they're just running this offense. We're going to get rid of the ball super quick, and we're going to run the ball. So, Onwenu, just get your hands on guys quickly and don't necessarily worry about these deep drop backs and becoming a liability in pass protection. But up to this point, when they do go to those deep drops, Onwenu's been solid. So it's just really fascinating that Onwenu, who fell because he was supposed to be this heavy-footed, plodding guard, is just kicking ass at right tackle. He's been just an incredible pick for the Patriots and showing that versatility too. So, man, just really impressive stuff. And then Damian Harris, +2 for the third week in a row. He's been great. Just solid, steady, good vision, takes care of the ball, doesn't fumble, fights for tough yards. That's exactly what they want here. They want someone that'll grind out the ball in the run game. That's exactly what they've got there in Damian Harris. So figuring some things out on the offense with all these guys. And then on the defense, Nick Thurman, kind of a unknown defensive tackle, stepping up in the run game. Jason McCourty and John Simon, a couple veterans on the other hand, just time for them to come down. They're not having good seasons, simply put. So they are going to come down 4 apiece. And then for the Jets, Denzel Mims looking good for the third week in a row. He looks really good. I'll admit I wasn't super high on Denzel Mims, but he has come in and done exactly what he did at Baylor and been that physical threat on the outside, coming down with tough catches, running good routes. So Mims looks like the draft community was really right about this guy. Just add him to the list of receivers in this class. And, it's not that I hated Denzel Mims. I just liked other guys better, and some of those guys I like better are playing damn well too. So it's not that I was totally wrong. But regardless, Denzel Mims looks just great out there. They're getting some playmakers established here. Jamison Crowder was really good for them as well. And then George Fant, 2 weeks in a row of good pass protection at that right tackle spot. He's still kind of learning the position in a lot of ways. He's never really started. It's a guy that played more tight end for the Seahawks than offensive tackle last year. So he's still kind of learning here, but he's going to go up 1, 68 to a 69. But these other guys, center and left guard, brutal in pass protection in recent weeks. Connor McGovern, free agent signing. He's been a decent run blocker, so they like what they have there, but he needs to get better in pass protection. And Alex Lewis, same thing. They've been pretty much on the field because of their success as run blockers. Adam Gase wants to run the ball, but yeah, they've struggled in pass protection. And then Chris Herndon is going to come down. It's just been sad what he's been putting out there. He's not run blocking. He's dropping the ball. He's not coming down with tough catches. He seems like he's given up on this team, and he's playing like it, so he's going to come down. And then for the defense, Lorenzo Fatukasi for the second week in a row. He has been just dominant in run defense. They got rid of Steve McClendon, and Fatukasi's played more nose tackle here, and he has absolutely proven that to be a good call. I mean, he is just blowing things up, getting stops. Such a strong player. He continues to grow as this breakout star of a run defender. And then players dropping across this defense here. Henry Anderson, Nathan Shepard, neither of these guys playing well, either as run defenders or pass rushers over the course of the season. They're going to come down. Pierre Desir has struggled this year as well, coming over from the Colts after they released him. And Bleswan Austin. So the corners, the defensive tackles, got to play a little better there for some of these starters. And that is going to do it. There are your Week 9 studs and duds. Again, guys, please do hit that like button. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're loving this series. Enjoy picking up the roster this week. Cheers, guys. We'll see you for the next one. Peace out.